Yes, I'm Christian Blatt. This is the Bladtcast, and I'm talking to the guys of Wings of Steel, talking to Leo, and also talking to Parker. Thanks for taking the time to join me today, guys. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure being here, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and I wanted to just sort of, reading through the notes about the band. You guys only met a few years ago here in Los Angeles. So, whichever one of you wants to start, let's start there. How the two of you meet and how Wings of Steel kind of blossoms, I guess, after you guys meet.
I mean, it was pretty. I think all things considered, it was pretty straight to the point. I mean, both me and Leo were going to this music school out here, and we kind of went there under the impression that we would go there and we would meet a bunch of different people who were into the same kind of style of music, and we could go and start a band and all that. But um, the labor pool, as we could put it, was a little bit more scarce than we had anticipated. So it was really me and Leo. We were like the only two rocker guys cruising around there. So inevitably we crossed paths and we started talking. I'm like, hey man, you like Whitesnake, you like Blue Murder? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, cool, you're the first person I met who knows who those bands are. Let's start a band. And he's like, yeah.
And it
And
was
the rest
cool
is
too.
history.
I think the
Yeah.
timing here was kind of sweet too, because I moved out from Sweden to attend that college in LA, and Parker graduated high school early, so it kind of just stars a line.
Yeah, well, I mean, graduating high school at all, I don't know how rock and roll that is, but I guess we'll overlook it
This is
at
one
this
smart guy, man. He's gonna change the whole appeal of rock and roll.
The funny thing is, obviously, if it's almost like you guys were just a few decades too late. 3-4 decades ago, everybody knew White Snake, and you would have you guys would have had hundreds of people to pick from. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess when you go to some of those, if it's a music school, people are there for all kinds of music. You probably have like classically trained people, and then also it's almost like they don't even want to let you get to the good stuff right away. Like, I as much as I appreciate music, I never was musically inclined, but I went to school for communications. I wanted to work in radio and television, and essentially I do that. But I mean, you don't even set foot in a even a pretend TV studio for like the first 2 years. It's like the good stuff's all down the road. It's like let's get your money for a couple years. Let's make you take a bunch of classes, and then maybe you get to do the fun stuff. So you guys meet, you realize you like the same kind of music, and before we get into the wings of steel of it, my apologies. Leo, you moved here from Sweden, so let's talk a little bit about that and what I mean, what brought you to LA? Was it just the idea of like, well, there's clearly got to be some kind of rock scene there, and what music were you into? We mentioned Whitesnake, but what had reached you in Sweden?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched upon it. Honestly, you mentioned that we're kind of late to the party, right? And it kind of felt like that growing up too around here, because I didn't have a lot of friends who were into the same music as I was, so I was kind of partying on my own, in my own way, listening to the music that I like to listen to, and it wasn't until I met Parker that you can actually kind of start enjoying that together. And obviously, it's not heavy metal until you come together, right? But yeah, so I grew up on a lot of early blues, actually, a lot of '70s rock. So I'm kind of from that school originally, and then during my teen years, I really got into the blues side of the '80s kind of rock era, Gray White and those types of bands.
Sure, yeah.
And then I kind of recircled to bands such as Judas Priest again. Initially I was more on the early '70s side of things, and then I kind of grew more towards the '90s Priest and stuff like that. And it's kind of gone back and forth like this. You never lose touch with what you love, and I know that me and Parker, we've gotten a lot of inspiration from each other, from what we listen to, and we discovered a lot of things together. Actually, some of the coolest music that we've discovered had happened when we met on the same soil in the same car, cruising down the fucking PCH.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely something about road trip music. When I get a new album from a band that I love, I always try to figure out, like, I don't want to be sitting in traffic, but I would love I live in the Valley, so a drive up to PCH is a little harder to come by. But the
Yeah.
idea of, like, I want to, like, how long is this album? Great. I want to, I want to, like, drive an hour and 15 and listen to the new Metallica. I want to actually hear all of it in the order. But I definitely, a great album is perfect in the car. Parker, what brings you to LA, and where did you head to LA from originally?
Well, I actually grew up out here. I think I'm one of the few musicians I know out here who's actually from LA.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of times, like, if people are from Southern California, you don't meet that many that grew up, like, in the actual LA area. It's
yes, but I
usually somewhere
mean,
else.
So I live in Thousand Oaks, which
Sure.
it's not technically LA, but I mean it's right outside.
Look, you could get to the Hollywood Bowl anywhere between 40 minutes and 2 hours, just depending on when you drive.
Yeah, and talking about a good drive to listen to an album. Pretty much anytime
Yeah.
I have to go down there, I get through a whole album.
That's
So
a
it's
great
cool.
point. Yeah.
But yeah, so I grew up here in Thousand Oaks, and I mean, yeah, it was, similar to Leo, like, no, I mean, the music interest of my generation is not it doesn't really gel with me, but I didn't really like, my parents aren't really that, like, they didn't have like a big music collection or anything like that, but because we grew up in the day and age of the internet, like, this stuff was kind of available. So I remember, I think it was like 8 years old. I discovered the song "Separate Ways" by Journey, and then I was like,
Sure.
"Whoa, this is amazing!" That opened up a wormhole. And then I think it was like 9 or 10 when I discovered Metallica, and I just like, okay. And so, like, between those two things, and then it all just kind of snowballed from there.
Well, yeah, that's good to be that open-minded. I was about 9 when my brother came home with he's 5 years older than me. He came home with Master of Puppets, which at that point I believe was the new Metallica album, and I was like, nope, that's not for me. Eventually you come around, but I guess I was a little bit of a late bloomer. I was talking to somebody just the other day that the first time I saw Kiss on television was when they still had the makeup on, and I was terrified. So, but it kind of has there's something about being scared, that actually can work in your favor. But and it's funny because I talk to a lot of musicians about how they grow up around music. And my dad had a really extensive record collection. He got married in 1974, so his record collection goes right up to like 1973. And so it was like all the first bunch of Stones albums, and all the Doors albums, and the Beatles, all that. So it was like I was this is the day and age where I listen to everything on tape. So I was like taping these records so that I could listen to them. But when I was really little, around the house, my mom had 2 8-tracks that she played all the time. They were Barry Manilow and John Denver. So, really, I get my musical appreciation from my dad, is what I'm trying to say. But and it's interesting because you'll talk to a lot of people who doesn't, I mean, I'm 47. You guys are lucky enough to be younger than that. But, when you hear great music, you talked about Separate Ways, by Journey. It's like, if you hear that and you go, and like after a minute, you're like, I got to turn this off. This isn't for me. It's like, all right, that's probably not somebody that personally any of us are going to really have a lot in common with. It's that guy's voice is giving me a headache. Why is he singing so high? So it's but it's cool, and that you guys sort of bond over that. So when do you start playing together? I mean, even before you put the name Wings of Steel on it, you guys get to know each other. You like some of the same music, and Leo, you're the vocalist, and Parker, you play the guitar. So how long between you guys meeting are you just like hanging out and playing around, listening to music and actually playing it?
Well, we met in 2019, and
Okay.
our debut came out in March 2022, and we probably started recording that one probably about 7 months before, or something like that, 6 months before.
Well, yeah. I mean, the actual here's the thing from the time we met. Yeah, I mean, we were coming up with ideas and putting out demos and stuff, and then COVID rolls around, and we're stuck inside. So we're like, great, let's just write even more music. So we just wrote a lot of stuff, and the EP is basically like it's kind of like our best of that period.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Not
true.
to say,
Yeah.
I mean, here's the there's other tracks on there, and like we may or may not release them in the future, but yeah. So I mean, pretty much as soon as we met, like we were bouncing ideas and putting stuff together, and then it really kicked into full gear when we both finished the school too, so the school's done, and we're stuck inside, so it was a perfect storm to write a shitload of music.
You know what, Leo, you're right. Obviously, he is smart. He's graduated from 2 schools, so that's already a leg up from a lot of guys in rock and roll. So, but so yeah, I mean, look, I talked to a lot of musicians during COVID and then even after, and I think the thing that it let from varying degrees of artists who've been around a long time, people just starting out, it really gave them a chance to put out material that had a lot more time to kind of, I don't know, sit there and ferment. It wasn't like, okay, I got to get these songs out because, then we got to try and get back out on the road and we have to do all that. It's like, well, I'm home anyway. And, there 20 of these songs are really good, but what if I make 10 of them great, and really take the time. So, yeah. And that stretch in like mid 2021 when all of a sudden like all of your favorite bands were finally putting out new albums and new albums were coming out, and I had to spend a lot of time driving around in the car to listen to all of it.
And it was cool too because so I lived in Hollywood when I moved out there. Parker was still out in Thousand Oaks at that point, and he ended up moving in with me and my other friend who I was living with at the time. So I think also the amount of time you spend together will also affect how you write music and how the music comes out on the other side of things. Because, usually the relationship of the band will in some way, shape, or form reflect what comes out on the other side. So the fact that we got to spend a lot of time together, especially during COVID too, I think really affected the way that we wrote music, and the fact that we get along so well as friends as well. I think it has a huge impact.
Well, and the fact that you're even during that time you were able to get together because I mean I've talked to musicians who were like, all right, well I sent here's 20 files of drum tracks and we're going to put that in a Dropbox and then we're going to put the bass tracks in the and I think that technically some of that music turned out good, but a lot of those musicians listened to it and I was like, yeah, we kind of have to play all this stuff over again. We have to get into a room together because it was kind of missing that, I don't know, that spirit, that energy you get when you're actually in a room together, and I think that probably goes a long way of you guys getting to play together. Leo, listening to a few tracks, and obviously the latest album is Gates of Twilight. We'll talk about the single that is out, Leather and Lace. We'll talk about that in a moment. But listening to that song and some of the other songs, what I was impressed by, Leo, is that there's not just like range in your voice. It's like really low, almost. I was thinking it reminded me of Pete Steele from Typo Negative, but then it's like also like Jeff Tate from Queensryche, sometimes in the same song, and like, look, singers do that. It's like, well, I got the low part and I got the high, but it's like, oh, what if I go as low as possible and as high as possible? Is that just the product of, hey, I liked a lot of different bands and some of them sang like this, some of them sang like that. Let me see what I can do.
I mean, basically, man, we're painters, and we
Yeah.
have all these colors to paint with. So why restrict yourself to black and white only? I feel like we do a pretty good job coloring the landscape musically, instrumentally, and the vocal is yet another instrument to throw some color on there. So why not use the full spectrum?
Yeah, absolutely. And Parker, go ahead.
I'll just add to that. I'll add to that point really quick. I mean, that's a really good way of putting it. It's basically like we just like a bunch of stuff, and it all kind of comes out into the music. And I think it's it's interesting if you look at any like the comments section on like a YouTube video or music video or something, like we go through this and we see, oh, Queensryche, Priest, Whitesnake, Great
Yeah.
White, like all these awesome bands. And like, the thing is, like, it's not just one of them. Like, there's like little bits and pieces of all that stuff. And like, I think that's just kind of our style. We didn't really want to like stick to just one. Okay, we're just gonna sound like this band and be in this style. Like, no, we just write the music we write.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's that's a great approach. I mean, look, a newer band like Greta Van Fleet has had tremendous success, but there is that knock on them that it's like, oh yeah, but they sound like Led Zeppelin, and as they've gone on, the sound's a little different, but they start, and you're like, okay, so that's really what it is. And if you can sort of early on be like, well, we have a lot of different influences, and you can sort of, I don't know, synthesize it in a way where it just contributes to the sound. I think that's great. And Parker, I wanted to ask you a sort of a similar question. Taking in all the stuff that you liked, were there guitarists, or was there even one where you're like, that was you heard somebody, or maybe you saw them live and you're like, well, now I need a guitar like today? Or was it more of a general, like that's what you wanted to do? Or was there one or two guitarists that whether you saw them on TV or perform live or something?
It's I think, like, personally, when I think the first thing that always got me was just like the energy and the music. I think that was like the main gravitational pull. And then just, I mean, when I was actually, before I tried to play guitar, I actually tried to learn how to play piano, but I just hated the structure and the discipline and getting that all dialed in. So the
Yeah,
guitar.
and how many times can you play Home Sweet Home and Dream On? Eventually you want to play other songs.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, my heart sings through the six strings, but but yeah,
Nice.
I mean, it wasn't necessarily a thing. Like, it wasn't like I saw one guy and then that was
Sure,
enough.
yeah.
Like, it was really the music. But I mean, I do have a lot of guitar players that I really like. Like John Sykes is awesome. John Norum from Europe is awesome. George Lynch, Michael Schenker, Willie John Roth. I mean, it's kind of like the music. There's a bunch of guys. I take a lot of stuff from a lot of different places, but.
Yeah, and of those guys, George Lynch, I actually spoke to last week because he's got a new Lynch Mob album coming out, and I mean, that's a guy who, like, as I'm putting together notes for him, I'm like, I mean, he never really slowed down. It's like Lynch Mob has like 10 different lineups over all the years. He doesn't even know everybody who's in it. Dokken comes and goes, and he has this band End Machine that he does, and I was just like, it's like exhausting to keep up with that guy. And it's like he could slow down, but he just doesn't. And he's a nice guy to chat with, but also it's like it's just so impressive. And yeah, I mean, the list that you gave, that's obviously just some of the best. And John Sykes is one of those guys who he does that 87 Whitesnake record, and obviously there's plenty of other stuff that he did, but I mean, he didn't tour with it. He's not in the videos, so it's like, people who are really into some of these bands, of course they know John Sykes, but even when that out, when there were those like 4 videos on MTV, like, all throughout the day, people didn't necessarily give John Sykes the appreciation, but he's kind of like off the radar now, which seems too bad, because you feel like, I mean, he's not that old. He had a lot of stuff in him. But so what I want to talk about now is the current album, and I was double checking in the notes. So Wings of Steel was the debut EP. Gates of Twilight is the new album. Is it available now? I've seen links to it. Is it pre-order, or is it just out there now?
Yeah, it's out. We dropped it on the May 19th of this year.
All right, so that's probably why. I assume because it didn't give me a release date. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, May 19th, and it's all major streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple, YouTube. The list goes on, and it's available on CD format from our website, wingsofsteelband.com.
Yes, wingsofsteelband.com is that'll take you to the YouTube pages and all of that. And yeah, I think I have 2 young kids, so when I listen to music, sometimes it's I get to listen with like one earbud in while I'm like doing the dishes at night or something. But I do like to take those road trips, and yeah, I can just throw my phone on. But I do still like getting CDs because I like to kind of read through the booklets, the liner notes, anything that comes with it. But obviously, vinyl. I understand the appreciation. It just doesn't suit my lifestyle right now to set up a nice big turntable. And there's a lot of jumping and shaking in my house, so I think that I definitely prefer the CD. So that's great to know that that's there. Let's talk about the song that is out there now. "Leather and Lace" is the name of the song, and there's a video for it, which I will show our YouTube audience, and our audio audience will get to hear it, a little bit of it on our way out. But let's talk a little bit about "Leather and Lace," please. Whichever one of you wants to jump in.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was a video or something coming.
No, the video is going to come up, but you guys can talk over it.
Yeah, great. So
Yeah.
"Leather and Lace" it's a fun song. We when we wrote "Gates of Twilight," the album, I flew out from Sweden. I had pretty much 10 weeks because of the visa situation, right? I'm out there on a tourist visa, so I can't extend my stay or stay too long. And so we had 10 weeks to write that album, and we knocked out 10 songs during that time. And this song was the fastest one of all of them. I think we did it in 2 days. It was said and done.
For reference, just the way that me and Leo generally work, I think on average a song takes about 7 to 10 days. Like,
okay,
just
wow.
given like we sit down, we write it, and then we record stuff, and we do the lyrics and just getting everything in there. But yeah, anyways.
Yeah, and this song, it's got that kind of 80s hard rock kind of bluesy thing going, and it's one of those songs Personally, I always wanted to write one of those songs and always wanted to have one of those songs out. And me and Park, we got together on that riff and we just knocked it out from there. And we got to do a fun music video for it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, related to this song is that I think it's easy to we're talking about like the style of the band and everything. Like, there's many I guess we could say there's many faces to the same band, and this is if you listen throughout the rest of the album, the rest of the album doesn't just sound like this song. Like, this is just one thing, but I think every other song on the full album has like its own stylistic place that it occupies, and it's still all us. It's still it's still Wings of Steel, but yeah, so this is a cool, we got to be, flashy and do something a little more bluesy and a little more like kind of 80s era stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We start off the conversation. You guys mentioned Whitesnake, and Great White came up. I mean, when you would listen to those albums, especially like in the heyday of both of those bands, the songs didn't really all sound the same. There were your radio songs, of course. You had to sell records, but and I mean, I'm thinking in very different sounds, but both Great White and Whitesnake, there were some just really bluesy stuff. So it's cool to have like the rockers. I mean, I would say that "Leather and Lace" is definitely it has that feel. Not like it's a song that feels dated, but it has that kind of energy. It's an up song. You could definitely have imagined, it being in the rotation on like, Headbangers Ball back in the day. If you guys had only been, 35 years older like me or whatever, But so that song's out there. You have the video, and I know that there's a number of videos on the YouTube channel from both of your releases. And I saw on the YouTube channel you guys had a big show here in LA not that long ago at the Whiskey. Are you, for the most part, playing local, or do you have stuff scheduled around the country, maybe around the world? What's in the cards in the future for Wings of Steel?
So actually, Leo, on your last thing, Leo kind of touched upon this. He's only after he finished his school, his student visa ran up, and so he basically had to go back. So the
Oh,
way
I
that we
see.
do things now is because we can't afford to get a full artist visa. We basically he'll come here for 90 days. We'll do that's about as or less than 90 days. That's about as long as you can be here on a tourist visa. So
I
he'll come
see.
here and then we'll write and record our music and then do whatever stuff we need to do and then the rest of the year we just kind of run things remotely. But yeah, so in the history of Wings of Steel, we've actually done only 3 live shows to date, and they've all won. The first one was at the Whiskey, the second one was at the Vibe Room, and our most recent one was at the Whiskey. Um, so in
So
terms
it's
of
basically the entire live history of the band is in like a 2 block radius of Sunset Boulevard.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's great.
um,
Yeah.
but anyway, so in terms of our future plans, though, next year our big endeavor that we're looking at is we're actually we're putting together a European tour. We got booked on some
Oh,
a few pretty cool metal festivals out there, and I mean when we look at our audience and who's following us and dropping comments and all that stuff, like we have a sizable portion of our audience is out there in Europe, so that'll be really exciting. And then no, I can't guarantee anything because we don't have anything set in stone yet, but we are very much trying to get out and tour the Midwest and the East Coast here in the U.S. as well later in 2024.
right. Or at least get as far as Glendale,
Yeah,
Maybe.
Yeah, I was looking at as you were talking, I was looking at your Instagram, and this is I guess this is a German festival that'll happen in 2024. I guess that's in May. See, look how smart I am. I'm able to read dates backwards, or the other way that they do them in Europe, and
You're on
that's
the
pretty
right.
great. So obviously these are like hard rock and metal bands where you can actually read the names of the bands in the logo, so it's not like it's not like a death metal festival, so it seems like you guys will be a good fit there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know the comedian Don Jameson pretty well, and one of the shows he does, he did that metal show on VH1 for a while, but the internet show they do, they have a running bit where they try to figure out the name of the death metal band from their logo, and it's usually very hard to ascertain. But you guys have a great logo. It's easy to read. And as we start to wind down, I know there's also a song called Wings of Steel. So does the name of the band come from that? What's the chicken or the egg on that, Parker? Do you have the band name first, or does the song come up and you go like, this is such a good song? It's like how Bad Company have the song Bad Company on the album Bad Company, and it's like, all right, well, this is our Bad Company.
well, yeah. I mean, one of the going backwards in our timeline, from COVID onward, we're writing all this music, and I mean, we spent so much time and so much strain trying to find a band name, and we just couldn't figure it out because everything was taken, or it was like a 4-word thing, and I'm like, I don't want to join that club. We wanted to we wanted to find something that was like short, but it summed up the music well. But I don't know. We beat our head against that wall for like literally over a year, and we still couldn't find it. So we're like, whatever. Let's just keep, we'll keep writing music and doing our thing. And so, yeah, I think we wrote the song itself. I believe it was February of 2021. I think that's when we wrote the song, and we actually we write the song. We're like, cool, and then Leo, he goes and he writes the lyrics. And initially, if you go and you look at the lyrics, you'll see a recurring lyrical theme in there is the word "shoot to thrill." But I'm like, well, that's an AC/DC song. So I'm looking through the lyrics. I'm like, maybe we should call it Wings of Steel. And we're like, okay, cool, And then I think it was like, maybe later that day or a couple days later, we're going for a walk, and I think Leo goes to me, yeah, that could be a pretty cool band name. And I'm like, I'm like, you know what? I think maybe. And then like a week later, I was like, yep, that's it.
Yeah, no, but it's good. You gave it some time. You sat on it, and yeah, I think if you had named your band "Shoot to Thrill," people would just assume you're an AC/DC tribute band. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? By the way, it's a great name for an AC/DC tribute band. I bet there is one. You know, that's if you were to look it up. Well, I think it's interesting. You know, just sort of the way you guys come together, and then you know immigration laws kind of dictating the way the collaboration works. But Leo, I'm glad you're able to get back for
Yeah,
3 months
you're
here and
always
there
rolling the
sometimes.
dice with TSA, man. But it's what it is.
Right, yeah, exactly. Never plan to fly out the day before a show, Leo. You know, give
Yeah,
yourself a few days just in case.
these 90 days beach vacations, man.
Right, exactly. Well, it was great chatting with you guys, and as I said before we started, I appreciated you being flexible with changing the time a little bit. Sometimes life gets in the way, but it was great chatting with you guys. I love what I've heard of the music, and if you guys are playing again in LA, I'll have to keep my radar up, and but I don't think I'm going to make it to that metal festival in Germany. But you know what? I bet it would be a great weekend if I did. You know, so maybe I'll start talking to my wife about that. You know, it's
Good excuse to go on a European vacation.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like, well, if I can't go on the Kiss cruise, can I go to a metal festival?
Can I go see Wings of Steel at this tiny ass metal fest in Bavaria?
Yeah, right, exactly. Come on, we'll take the kids to the sites.
Yeah.
Anyway, Leo Parker, Wings of Steel, and you said that the website is wingsofsteelband.com. Is that correct? I want to make sure I get it right.
Yes.
And you can find everything from there, all the social media. Look for you guys on YouTube. There isn't just the video that we played the snippet of. You can find all of it there. Thanks again to Leo and Parker. And as I mentioned a moment ago, our audio audience is going to hear Leather and Lace a little bit on the way out. And our YouTube audience, you just right there, you just type it in. And then you hit enter and you'll be able to watch it as soon as this video is over. But thanks again, guys. And for our video audience, we'll see you next time on the Bladtcast.